There may just be a superstar point guard on the market for this year's trade deadline, and his name is Trae Young. Stick around so we can go over the few likely candidates who will be favorites to grab their franchise facilitator. The Atlanta Hawks have not lived up to expectations this season. They're currently fighting for a play-in spot at the moment, which isn't the ideal scenario given that they have an all-star backcourt in Young and DeJounte Murray. The number one cause for their struggles is their defense. There's no way around it. I see a lot of Hawks fans blaming DeJounte Murray for this lackluster defense because he was supposed to be an elite lockdown defender who was going to turn the Hawks into a top 10 defense. But anyone who knows the ins and outs of DeJounte's defense knows he has never been an elite one-on-one defender. He is, however, an elite off-ball defender who is insanely disruptive in the passing lanes and thrives as a team defender. Sure, he still is a good one-on-one defender, but it's not his specialty. And the fact that the Hawks didn't know that is just mind-boggling because it's clear that they thought he was going to magically fix their bad defense. And again, this is not a knock on Murray's defense at all. I personally think the Hawks are just asking him to do something that's way out of his ability. It's like asking Buddy Hield and Grayson Allen to start shooting multiple logo threes per game like Steph Curry. Sure, they're both elite three-point shooters, but asking them to shoot logo threes is just not a part of shooting they excel at, or are even comfortable with doing. That may sound like a random analogy, but hopefully you get my point. Murray is not a defensive stopper. Drew Holiday, Herb Jones, Alex Caruso, Jaden McDaniels, OG, Dylan Brooks are defensive stoppers. DeJounte Murray, Robert Covington, Jimmy Butler, current Kawhi Leonard, current Paul George, Delon Wright, Marcus Smart, Jonathan Isaac, and even SGA are all great off-ball defenders. It's important that people know the difference between the two. So now, the Hawks are without a defensive stopper, which allows any team with a decent offense and score to put up prime Michael Jordan numbers on them because they don't have anyone to slow them down. And while Trae Young has improved defensively, he obviously isn't a lockdown defender. Neither is DeAndre Hunter. Even though he should be, he just isn't. He's a good defender, but not the type of defender who can slow down the best players in the sport. Sadiq Bey, Garrison Matthews, and Bogdanovich definitely don't make this defense any better. But one thing that having a bad perimeter defense does is it puts a lot of pressure and responsibility on your rim protectors, Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu. The Hawks are ranked 28th in paint defense, so off that alone you would assume that Capella and Okongwu are doing a poor job. And while they haven't been great, they definitely have not been nearly as bad as the ranking shows. You see, when you don't have resistance on the perimeter, that means teams can just drive into the paint a ridiculously high amount of times. And unless you're Rudy Gobert or Anthony Davis, you just won't be able to handle it. So it's just a very bad situation defensively all around. Jalen Johnson has been good defensively, like DeAndre Hunter as well, but they just aren't the high-level defenders who can alter games on this end. Offensively, the Hawks are top 5 in points per game, so it's clear they can put the ball in the hoop at a high level, but it can't cover up how bad they are defensively. All of this, and then some, are reasons why Trae Young could end up on a different roster sooner rather than later. The rumors have even reached the locker room, and he said this: I mean, it's important that you block out the noise, but you're gonna hear. It's not like we don't hear. It's not like we all aren't aware of what's being said about each of us outside the locker room. But that's where I feel like we all gotta be better as far as just for each other. And I think we have in certain moments throughout games, but just not even worrying about that. Worry about what we have going on right now, because we can only control what we can control in the NBA. We can only control so much, and for us as players, I think it's hard being in those situations. It's hard hearing your name being talked about going somewhere else, and you could be moved here, whenever. You could be in the middle of a game and be traded. I've been a part of teams where that's happened, and it's not easy. The Hawks have come out and said that Trae Young is untouchable, meaning they aren't interested in trading. But a report from Trae Young's camp stated that they are interested in playing with one particular player. And this leads us into one of our 4 teams that are likely candidates to get him. Trae Young has expressed interest in playing alongside Victor Wembanyama and forming a must-see TV duo. And this trade scenario has been picking up steam in the media for weeks, especially after Spurs point guard Jeremy Sohan misses a pass to Victor nearly every game. Basketball fans all over are screaming for them to get a real point guard. I must admit this though, it would be kind of a weird move for Trae Young to go to a bad team like the Spurs. If he were to get traded, I'm sure he would much rather go to a contender at this stage in his career. However, it's still possible for this trade to happen due to how great Victor is, and will be in the near future. But first, what would a trade to San Antonio even look like? Well, we know it would have to be a hell of an offer to change the mind of the Hawks GM. I was thinking of sending Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, Cedi Osman, Malachi per annum and 3 first-round picks in exchange for Trae. This would give the Hawks excellent assets to start their rebuild, and just imagine how much more they could get from trading DeJounte Murray and Clint Capella. For the Spurs roster, they would have Trae Young and Wemby as their 2 stars. Jeremy Sohan, Doug McDermott, Charles Bassey, and Tre Jones would still be on the roster. Obviously, that is not a contending roster. So if they were to somehow get creative in free agency and add a few high-quality role players, who knows what could happen. But I want you guys to tell me how you feel about a Trae Young and Wemby pairing, and could you see it happening? The next team who could snatch him up are the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers have struggled this season, and you can blame it on Darvin Ham all you want, but the truth is the Lakers can't shoot or score consistently enough to be a serious contender. Even when AD and LeBron play well, they don't have a significant contribution from their teammates. If you want to know what real contribution looks like, just look at the Clippers. Kawhi, Paul George, Norman Powell, and James Harden are all scoring over 40% from 3. Then, of course, you have Bones Highland, Russ, and Ivica Zubac, who can put up points as well. It's clear that unless they turn things around fast, they won't make it to the playoffs. Or if they do, they're going to be exiting quickly. So if they are still underperforming as the trade deadline gets closer, I would at least entertain the idea of sending Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, Max Christie, Gabe Vincent, and a 2025 first-round pick for Trae. For the Hawks, there's not going to be too many packages better than this one. These are phenomenal building blocks, and again, just imagine how many more pieces you could get from trading Murray and Capella. Let me know what you guys think of this trade and a potential Laker lineup of Trae Young, Taurean Prince, LeBron James, Jared Vanderbilt, and AD. The next team that could have a solid chance of getting him are the Brooklyn Nets. The only way this trade could be the most beneficial for the Nets is if they're able to keep Mikal Bridges and Nick Claxton. So sending Cameron Johnson, Cam Thomas, Lonnie Walker, and Dennis Smith Jr. to the Hawks for Trae could work, depending on how much they value Cam Thomas especially. And it's important to mention that this trade scenario is for if the Hawks are aiming for a rebuild. If they aren't, then trading Cam Thomas, Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Cameron Johnson could be a very underrated trade. But let me know what you think about this one. Personally, I'm not too fond of it, but it's definitely an option. Now, for this last team, this one is my personal favorite, and I think it's going to be yours too. And that's sending Trae Young to the New Orleans Pelicans for CJ McCollum, Jordan Hawkins, Trey Murphy, and Jose Alvarado. The Pelicans have been good this season. However, I don't think anyone has them beating the Nuggets, Timberwolves, Clippers, or even the Thunder in a series. Not only will Zion and CJ's injury concerns be a problem come playoff, but neither of their 2 stars, Zion nor Brandon Ingram, are experienced in the playoffs. But Ice Trae is. The Hawks could be more than satisfied with Trey Murphy, Jordan Hawkins, and Jose Alvarado, and they could either play or trade CJ for even more assets depending on the direction they want to take. I don't know, I just love the sound of Trae Young, Brandon Ingram, Herb Jones, Zion, and Jonas starting 5. And then you would still have Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance Jr., and Najee Marshall defensively off the bench. These are all interesting trades that they, the Hawks, should give at least a tad bit of thought. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm aware that the Hawks said Trae is untouchable, but we've seen people's minds can change. Trae could maybe all of a sudden want out if his team gets even worse. The NBA is a roller coaster ride, and it's hard to predict what exactly is coming next. But I want you to let me know which one of these trades could you see happening, or if you have any trade scenarios of your own, we would love to hear it down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.